In this module, we are going to create the dialog for our chatbot. So far, we have created intents and entities and tested them to verify that Watson correctly identifies them when they appear in the user input. However, Florence, our chatbot, doesn't do much at this time. Specifically, it doesn't interact with the user, it doesn't greet them when they arrive, and it doesn't respond to anything. We are going to fix that in this module. Within our workspace, we'll click on Dialog and then the Create button. By default, the Welcome and Anything Else nodes are created for us. As a reminder, the Welcome node is where the chatbot prompt resides. The Anything Else node is the node we use to specify what to reply to the user when none of the nodes above were applicable to the user input. Let's click on the Welcome node to see its structure. We have a name for the node, which can be called whatever you like. The name doesn't have to match the condition. A special condition called Welcome, which is only true at the beginning of the conversation. And the response, which is the chatbot's prompt. We also have the option to specify what happens after the node sends a response. We can wait for the user to enter further input, or we can jump to a different node. After the chatbot greets the user, we want to see what they reply. So the wait for user input is the correct action to take after the node is executed. Let's select the Anything Else node now. Same deal. We have a name for the node, a condition, and a response block. The Anything Else special condition will be true if the conditions in all of the nodes above this one are false. The response block has a series of responses because we don't want to send the same response over and over when the chatbot can't answer the user's question. So the multiple responses introduce a little bit of variety. We can click on the Set Random link to randomize their order. Let's see these nodes in action. We open the Try It Out panel and get prompted with the response of the Welcome node. As you can see, the selected node is highlighted on the left in the dialog area. Since the next action for the node is to wait for user input, nothing else happens until the user enters some new text. Let's enter some irrelevant text, such as something something. We only have one node above the Anything Else node, and its condition is false for the current input. So the Anything Else condition is true, and the chatbot replies with one of the possible responses we randomized in the Anything Else node. If we enter other irrelevant information, such as something else, we get another response from the Anything Else node. I want to point out a couple of things about this. First, the Anything Else node was selected even though Watson detected a goodbyes intent. This is because it doesn't matter whether an intent or entity is found. All that it matters for the Anything Else condition is that no nodes above have been executed for that specific input. Of course, if we already had a node to handle goodbyes, then the Anything Else node would not be executed for this input. And this brings us to a second point. At some point, we'll have a node that handles the goodbyes intent. You will say goodbye to the user when it detects that the user wants to leave the conversation. Do we really want to provide that response to the user when they enter something else? To me, even stretching it something else is not a goodbye. So we can take this moment to train Watson further on the goodbyes intent by marking this input as irrelevant directly from the Try It Out panel. Watson will categorize it as a counterexample. Note that if we type it in again right away, we'll still get the goodbyes intent while Watson is training. However, once Watson is done training, we'll correctly identify the intent as irrelevant. What's actually happening behind the scenes is that Watson is fine-tuning its cognitive model for the goodbyes intent on the basis of this new counterexample, much like it does every time you add a new example. Now that we have extensively investigated these two nodes, let's talk about our default prompt. It's bad. How can I help you sounds helpful, but on its own is too broad. it is setting our chatbot to fail. We can select the welcome node again and edit the response. I'm going to paste here a response I prepared. When we refresh, the new prompt is shown. Let's take a moment to analyze this new prompt. We start by giving our chatbot a bit of personality with a name. In our case, Florence. We then immediately volunteer that it's a chatbot. This helps with setting the right expectations. In the next highlighted part, we essentially declare the scope of the chatbot, further setting the chatbot and the user up for a successful interaction. I wouldn't make the prompt much longer than this, so if your chatbot has many capabilities, do not list them all in your prompt. Instead, mention the general scope in your prompt, what your chatbot is about. You can always have a capabilities intent and a node that specifically handles questions like, what can you do? You could even jump to it after executing the anything else node. This way, when the user keeps asking irrelevant or out of scope questions, you can inform them of what your bot can do and get them back on track. I also want to point out that almost regardless of the chatbot you're building, you'll want to have a welcome and anything else node. They are default nodes for a reason. However, clicking on this three dots icon, you can delete the node if you wish. As well as performing other operations like adding a node above or below, adding a child node, moving the node, and even adding a jump to another node. Later in this module, we'll definitely use these options. In the next video, we'll add nodes to handle the chit-chat intents that we created.